connecting. Burn the box.
When filmmaker Gus Van Zant was asked why he had done a remake of the very famous film classic by Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho, he said, well, if I hadn't done it, nobody else would have. That's something that I feel a certain kinship to, because I feel the same way about a book I wrote, which is called Uncommon Sound. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Have you ever made mayonnaise? Isn't it amazing the way you turn this liquid into this magical thick stuff that tastes really good and you can put in sandwiches and is wonderful? Well, having an idea, small idea, is a bit like making mayonnaise. And if you whip it right, if you nurture it and grow it, it doesn't flop and it can become something concrete, just like a mayonnaise, which if it goes wrong, goes back to liquid. And how do you turn an idea into a concrete object? Which is an interesting question. But more to the point, as far as I'm concerned, what about having a very small idea? Something really modest. And why not? I mean, in this age of global thinking, it seems that we tend to assume that any idea worth having has to have some kind of global impact. Well, I want to tell you about the interest of having a very small idea and just helping it grow and see how, as it grows, it can have relevance on many levels, levels that you might not even have expected. Forget numbers, forget quantities, forget about changing the world. Just think of something that links a number of human beings. Not even that many, but a certain number, and follow that link. Ideas are born small, just like you and me. What matters and what makes them big is what you do with them. A number of years ago, something happened in my life that made me put my movie career on hold, and I decided to take it as an opportunity to go back to certain things that I love doing. I love writing, and I love playing music, and also I'm a left-handed guitarist. And I thought, nobody's ever written about that, left-handed guitar players. So I dove into the subject, and I started doing some research. And I found that there were quite a lot of left-handed guitar players around, and some very famous ones. There's one that we've been hearing quite a bit today. Jimi Hendrix is a lefty guitarist. Paul McCartney, Dick Dale, Kurt Cobain, Bobby Womack, Bob Geldof, Albert King, Otis Rush, Elizabeth Cotton, many legends. In fact, Walter was talking about Douglas Adams, the writer of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, Douglas was a left-handed guitar player. In fact, he wrote the foreword to my book, not long before he passed away. Anyway, it's wonderful. There's some famous guitar players, famous left-handers. Now what? It's still a very narrow point of view. It's a pretty pointed topic. But like the infinitely small, the deeper you go and the more you discover. And it's through this microscopic window, I discovered a whole little world. It's like a microcosm. In this narrow context, you in fact uncover a much bigger context. I found more than 300 guitar players around the world that are actual recording artists who play on all 5 continents and cover every genre of non-classical music and make up a perfect cross-section of the musician's life. And that's from the iconic stars like Jimi Hendrix to the studio worker bee, whose names you don't know, but who play on a lot of records. And I found out that these guys play in a lot of different ways, and I'll illustrate that for you. I brought my baritone ukulele just to show you. what it means to play left-handed, because obviously it probably doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot to a lot of you. So a right-handed guitarist plays this way. A left-handed guitarist plays this way. This is playing left-handed. And most left-handers will switch the strings around so that it's a mirror image of what a right-hander does. Like so. And many of them, instead of doing that, take a right-handed guitar and just flip it over, don't change the strings, and play what we call upside down. That means now that the treble strings are at the top and the bass strings are at the bottom. It's not the conventional way, but it does happen. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we continue. But one other thing I found out, which is pretty strange, is that some of these left-handed guitarists are, in fact, right-handed people. That's right. What's left? Who's right? Who's right? What's left? Right? Left. So some of these unique artists have to learn guitar and devise their own style, their own tuning, their own stringing order, their own finger-picking technique. They are true mavericks. And as mavericks, they really represent the essence of popular music. By evolving outside the norm, by taking the road less traveled, those artists represent the creative spirit that inhabits all of us, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. So this little idea was starting to grow into a book that questions the value of rigid principles. Forget about thinking outside the box. It's burn the box time. Forget the box. There is no box. Of course, a lot of people thought I was nuts while I was writing this book, Walter among them. And, you know, they said, who cares? Who's going to want to read about this anyway? Well, this is similar to what a lot of left-handed guitar players experience when they start learning, is people tell them, what are you doing? You're doing it the wrong way. You're playing the wrong way. You're doing it upside down. You don't know what you're doing. You're never going to amount to anything. Just imagine if they'd said that to Jimi Hendrix. So the funny thing is that some of these people, of course, have become references. And this is the interesting part. I'm going to give you some examples. Elizabeth Cotten, who was a star in the folk revival of the 60s, an old lady who played guitar left-handed upside down, and she was quite famous, and her finger-picking style was referred to as cotton picking. As her name, cotton picking. Just making sure you're awake. And the funny thing is that she was copied by tens of thousands of guitarists who wanted to play the folk style. And they all emulated her way of playing, even though her way of playing was completely contradictory to the way they were playing. Same thing with Albert King. Albert King, one of the most copied blues players of all time. Stevie Ray Vaughan and untold amounts of guitarists have copied his licks, even though the way he plays is directly derived from the fact that he plays upside down. But they learned to play it right side up. So now the interesting thing is these single artists playing like no one else, become references and guides to everyone else. And the little book idea becomes the reference on the subject, but also, like a microcosm, it blossomed into this broader view, into being a book about music as a whole and about the life of the 20th century musician. So what I have to tell you about that is never give up on an idea because it's small or crazy. Doing what nobody else does is what it's all about. Forget the box, and remember, if you don't do it, nobody else will. Thank you.